Hello, friends, and welcome to our Sunday streaming services. If you're with us on Facebook or YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to get notifications when we have new videos. If you're with us here on Zoom, hello, drop a hi in the chat. We'd love to say hello back to you. And if this is your first time here, go ahead and sign our guest book at oakcliffeu.org/guest. Today's sermon is Turtle Island Languages, a Surprising and Enduring Heritage with Jonathan York. Announcements. There are a few webinars coming up dealing with diversity and inclusion. These include a pastoral counseling for the neurodiverse webinar, a Compass webinar, and a couple of other ones. So check out the e-blast to sign up for those. I'll be there. It'll be fun. All right. Alicia and Autumn have done some great work trimming our trees. Scott, show us how much fun they had. Can't have too much fun. It looks so good, right? Yes. And speaking of fixing up the church, Workday Wednesdays are back. So come join us on Wednesday at 5 o'clock and we'll feed you. We'll get the church ready for, what is it? Oh yeah, next week's live in-person church service. Isn't that so exciting? Next Sunday, December 5th, we are reopening the church finally. And we would love to have you there if you feel safe doing so. And if you do, go ahead and maybe consider helping us out with coffee service, because you know that's a very important part. Contact Johnny. If you don't feel safe, that is totally okay. We will still be with you here on Zoom every Sunday. And since we are reopening, that means we're having our winter solstice event like we do every year, but couldn't last year. That is on December 21st. If you'd like to help out with that, contact Rebecca. We are still collecting toys for the Red Path Warriors Society. If you plan on donating, please drop off your unwrapped toy this Tuesday from 9 to 3 o'clock in Hope Building. All right, it's that time of year again. There are lots of ways to support your church if you would like to do so. First of all, we have Giving Tuesday coming up this Tuesday. Go ahead and get on that, and Facebook will match us. We also have oakcliffeu.org/donate. Amazon Smile if you're buying all of your holiday gifts on Amazon. I Give if you're buying them anywhere else on the internet. We have a text to give option, Facebook donate button, and the Syracuse Workers Catalog. Rebecca does this every year. Check the e-blast for more information on buying things from there. That's really cool. And don't forget to fill out your pledge form. The pledge drive is still going on. And even if nothing has changed from last year, please go and just resubmit it. Fill it out. Big help. All right, that was a lot. For the details on all of these and for way more stuff, just go ahead and check out the e-blast. Everything you need is in the e-blast. The president's message, links, stuff, information. It's packed full of things. So go and check that out. All right, it is Sunday, so please join us for Talkback at 11:15 and Adult RE at 1 o'clock. We are also on Discord all week. There are no member anniversaries this week, but there were a lot of announcements, so maybe it's for the best. There will be more next week. So to everyone out there, I hope that you have a very happy Sunday.
Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Oak Cliff. Thank you for having the curiosity and courage to join us. We welcome you, whoever you are, whatever spiritual tradition, gender, age, race, sexual orientation, or background you may bring to our community. We hope you will find here comfort, connection, challenge, respect, and above all, love.
May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers, to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of love, compassion, and forgiveness.
Que esta luz que ahora encendemos nos inspire a usar nuestros dones y poderes para sanar y no para herir, para ayudar y no para impedir, para bendecir y no para maldecir, para servirte a ti, espíritu de amor, compasión y perdón.
Blessing of Gratitude, Celebration, and Support by Gwen Matthews. Today, we're thankful for you and what you bring to our church. Your spirit, talents, generosity, imagination, and dedication reaffirm our fellowship and create our beloved community. Our heartfelt thanks to you on this day and for all days to come. For those who embrace Thanksgiving as a day to honor the gifts of family, friendship, abundance, security, we celebrate with you and join our voices to hold aloft all sacred blessings. For those who hold Thanksgiving as a day of sadness, who mourn for the hurt and loss of Native peoples, who are lonely, who grieve the loss of those dear and beloved, we hold your heartache and sorrow so you do not have to carry the burden alone. Blessings be upon you.
Are gathered in safe before the storms begin. God, our Maker, will provide for our needs to be supplied. Come to God's own temple, come, raise a song of harvest home. All the world is but a field given for a fruitful yield. Wheat and tares together sown, here for joy or sorrow grown. First the blade and then the ear, then the full corn shall appear. Of harvest, grant that we wholesome grain and pure may be.
Because we love one another, we honor each individual spiritual journey. We celebrate life's abundance and service to each other, our community, and the world. We connect with each other in love, respect, and acceptance. Thus do we covenant together.
And now in Spanish. Porque nos amamos uno al otro, honoramos el viaje espiritual de cada individuo. Celebramos la abundancia de la vida en el servicio a entre sí, nuestra comunidad y el mundo. Ponemos en contacto a unos con otros en el amor, respeto y acepción, así que hacemos pacto.
You are not alone with your sorrow, just as I am not alone with mine. Our covenant of right relations makes this so. You and I are bound by our promise to commune. In community, the burden of a heavy heart is shared. A burden shared is a burden lightened. At this time, we invite you to publicly post your sorrows and prayer requests to the Zoom chat or to send them to our Facebook Messenger.
When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love.
This Sunday, like every Sunday, we reaffirm our promise to one another. Our promise makes clear the call to celebrate. For that which brings you joy, makes you grateful, brings you peace. We, your sacred community, celebrate. We celebrate together and magnify joy, heighten gratitude, and spread ever-increasing peace. At this time, we invite you to publicly post your joys and prayer requests to the Zoom chat or send them to our Facebook Messenger.
Spirit of light, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirs of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Turtle Island languages. A surprising yet enduring heritage. First, a land acknowledgement. This is Tulpemanahanek. This is Turtle Island. And you see North America with a turtle superimposed. Metaphorically, the world sits on the back of a turtle. When you look at the shape of North America, you have to ask, how did they know? But again, first, a land acknowledgement. We're here in Dallas County, and this rides on the back of Turtle Island. If we consider Dallas County as native land, then we should know that this land was the edge of the Caddo Confederacy, a sedentary confederation of nations, an agrarian culture of present-day East Texas, northern Louisiana, and western Arkansas. It was established about 600 years ago, And since this was the edge of the Caddo Confederacy, we also must acknowledge the neighboring Caddoan speakers, the Wichita. The Wichita peoples were also sedentary and semi-sedentary. We traveled from the Arkansas River to central Texas. Think Wichita, Kansas today, down to College Station. The Wichita peoples included the Wichita, the Tawakoni, the Waco, the Keachite, the Tawaya, and the Tawehash. Some of these names are familiar. They're names of communities and places here in North and Central Texas. The Wichita peoples were linguistic kin to the Caddo, but were not politically affiliated. They had an uneasy alliance with the Comanche people, who led specifically the Quahati especially, led a nomadic tributary empire of sorts that stretched from the eastern slope of the Rockies in present-day Colorado all the way down to South Texas, mostly west of the Balcones Escarpment, which roughly divides the present state of Texas into eastern and western regions, the eastern lowlands and the Gulf Highlands. We are east here of the Balcones. The linguistic tradition, the heritage of Turtle Island goes back at least 10,000 years to the migration out of Eurasia into the North American continent. However, there is some evidence that suggests that this happened well before that, with some artifacts, some evidence going back at least 50,000 years for those who are counting. If we were to take a look at the linguistic diversity of Turtle Island, we find the Algic, the Iroquoisian, Muskogean, Siouan, well, Siouan, I would say Lakota. Sioux is, we'll understand in a moment why I would prefer not to use Siouan. The Uto-Aztecan, the Athabascan, the Aleut, and Inupiat, Maya, and of course all others. Notice that here in the Caddo Confederacy, they did not necessarily include the Caddoan language group. It is separate from these others. We had a great amount of diversity, linguistic diversity here on Turtle Island. And my caption here reads, These are the tongues, the languages of Turtle Island. If you look at it a little more closely, you'll see an even greater diversity of dialects and other languages within whole language groups. The Algonquian, of course, was the most widespread. And for the most part, you didn't hear a lot of Algonquian here. But it does include the Cheyenne, as well as the Naskapi, the Montagnais, the Abenaki, the Lenape. And you'll find that most of my captions here will have Lenape references. I speak Lenape. Another look at the language diversity of Toltehuanahaning shows this extensive patchwork, in some cases of related languages, spoken side by side with unrelated languages. And so this is the past. This is the part of the heritage that even American English has has appropriated, has in some cases accepted, in other cases modified. In some cases knowingly, in others not so much. When you look at linguistic diversity in North America today, specifically in what is now the United States of America, this is what you see. Lots of English, a little bit of French, a little bit of Spanish. You have Français Québécois, you have Créole Français Louisianais, and otherwise you're seeing English and Spanish. And there are several dialects of Spanish, actually, slight variants. When you compare that against the ethnic diversity on Turtle Island today, you still find diversity, but it's not the same. It's not the same diversity. You find still some Aleut. If you look at where indigenous people, the people of Turtle Island, the people who spoke these old languages, and where we're distributed, it's not particularly strong. A lot of reasons for this, not the least of which being the great dying. Others from history of the disease, war, conflict, mostly with those who came after, who dominate American culture today. So when thinking about what happened to these languages, what happened to the linguistic diversity, the cultural diversity of Turtle Island from before, you see lots of English. If you pan back a little, you pull back a little, you still find a wide swath where Athabascan languages are spoken, many Algonquian, but otherwise you see this wide expanse of Indo-European languages. You go down into Mexico, Central America, you find indigenous languages, Turtle Island languages still spoken to some degree. Largely in isolated patches, with the widest, the largest area in what today is called Yucatan Peninsula. Otherwise, Algonquian languages, Athabascan languages seem to be confined to the far north. I want to call attention to the benefits of learning another language. This comes from Global Citizen, specifically an article by Mega Cherian. First of all, it increases your brain power. It opens the gateway into another culture. You can be a better communicator in any language if you know more than one. It makes travel easier and more enjoyable. And preserve lesser known languages. Become a more open-minded global citizen. And bridge cultural gaps that persistently seem to divide us. Ultimately, this is in the interest of gaining a greater awareness and appreciation and participation in global citizenship. Now, if we were to adapt this idea, to apply this idea, why it is beneficial to learn another language, let's apply it to indigenous languages. Still, it increases your brain power. You gain insight into American history, as well as an understanding of America as a living place. It makes travel easier and more enjoyable. It does indeed. After all, you can travel to one place or another and find the legacy of the indigenous languages. Places like Illinois, places like Wyoming, or Alabama. Since these languages are not widely known anymore by the mainstream, it helps us to remember, it helps us to preserve these lesser known languages, almost all of them. Actually, I believe all of them, with the possible exception of Cherokee and Navajo or Diné, are not well known and not widely spoken in this country. And finally, it allows us to become, or it encourages us still to become more open-minded, bridge those cultural gaps. One of the greatest tricks that indigenous people have had to pull, as it were, is convincing the world that we still exist. And knowing that we all have a responsibility to know, to remember, to relate, to understand, so that we can enhance our global citizenship, even here on this turtle island. I want to take a look at some examples from American history. I said earlier that the appropriation and the adoption of some languages and some words and phrases, some were done consciously, some were unconscious, some were erroneous. For example, Yucatan. Yucatan is not the original name of this part of Turtle Island. It was, to the locals, the Mayan-speaking peoples, actually as the Uto-Aztecan-speaking peoples, as the Uluyunilcuts. It is, you might wonder what happened in the case of Yucatan. We'll look at that in just a moment. Then there is Delaware. Delaware has a similar peculiar and somewhat really droll story. Its proper names are the Nape for the people and the Napehoking for the place. We have, I mentioned the Sioux earlier, but the proper name depends upon the tribe or the band. Either the Iangtonwan, Dewakanton, Hongpapa, Minakonju, Oglala. The term Sioux is actually from the Anishinaabe Nadiwisu, which turns out to be a pejorative. It was something of an insult. It was a negative term applied to the Lakota people. Huron has a similar story. Proper name is either Wendat or Wyandot. And Huron, this is a Huron. Huron is a weasel or a ferret. And this was applied as a pejorative, as a kind of an insult to the Wyandot by other Haudenosaunee-speaking peoples. Ojibwe. This is still within the Algonquian language group. Proper name, of course, is Anishinaabe. Anishinaabe are the people of this nation. Ojibwe was actually in the Nape insult. It's potentially impolite. It means the screamers. Just as Yucatan, that one's not necessarily an insult. That's based on a misunderstanding. The story goes that when Spaniards first reached the Uluyunilcuts, and encountered the people who lived there, they asked, "What is this place? ¿Qué lugar es esto?" And they would give them this puzzled look and say, "Yucatan, Yucatan." It turns out it translates to, "I don't understand you. What are you saying?" By the same token, Delaware, you may have heard that it allegedly is rooted in the title of Lord Delaware, but that's not the story that circulates in Lenape circles. Instead, there is this tale of an Englishman who was trying to learn how to speak Lenape. And he kept trying. One of the difficulties is that many of these languages have sounds that do not exist in, say, the English language as such. Lenape is one of them. In fact, if you listen, Lenape, how is it spelled? Is it spelled with an N, an L, an R? It's a little bit like trying to say all three sounds, to speak all three sounds at the same time. Lenape. When the Englishman finally said it, and pronounced it in a way that the Lenape understood, they said, "No, Nandanawen, Nandanawen, Nandanawen." And the name stuck, and it became known as Delaware. So that's kind of what happened. If we were to look at America as a living place, we'll find that many place names have retained their former names, or have been ascribed other names that are just as rooted in Turtle Island languages, like Punxsutawney comes from Punxsutawney, and you have Topeka, capital of the state of Kansas. Kansas actually comes from Kansa. But if you look at Topeka, it comes from Topeka. And Mississippi is from Mississippi. This is a river and a state, and I generally feel uncomfortable saying Mississippi River because it's redundant. Mississippi, Mississippi. These are both names for this long, wide river. It's a big, wide, exposed river, Mississippi. It is also a river that can be a source of life and a source of food, Mississippi. The river, also the river that eats. Alabama. This is a fun one. Alabama comes from Al-Apama, which is actually also Lenape. Notice you'll find a lot of Lenape words here. Al-Apama is actually an imperative, and it says Al is go. Apama is here and there. So go over there, or here and there. It's not like go away, but it's more here and there, around. Wyoming, also Lenape. It is. You find it in the Cheyenne language. You find it in Cree. You find it in Mi'kmaq. You find it in Shawnee. You find it in Potawatomi and Wabansi. And Wyoming is a description. Literally, it means where there is meat. This is why I have the flag of Wyoming has a bison on it, the silhouette of a bison on it. Because that is a source of meat. Even today, there is more livestock than people in Wyoming. There's also a place in Pennsylvania named Wyoming. And some people wonder, why is that? Well, because it's a description of the place where there is meat. Then we also have Chicago. This is both a river, it is a place, it is a city, it is also an herb. Specifically, it comes from Shkakhakwis. Shkakhakwis literally translates to skunk grass and was used to describe garlic greens or wild leeks or just about anything edible from the same family that you find onions and leeks and garlic and shallots and scallions and such. Along the Shkakhakwis, which now runs through downtown Chicago, these grew near the riverbank, And so it gives you a sense, again, it gives us a sense of place to know these words. And there's a lot of them. There are a lot of others. Some of the native language in American English, you have caucus, comes from the Lenape caucus. Quite literally, just straight up taken. And it means a meeting place. Also, the word gata. This is a phrase, this is a usage that does not come from Europe. It is related to the Lenape prefix gata, which means I must or I intend. Hey, as a greeting, it's taken straight also from Nalichsuak, from Lenape. Honky tonk, actually, you almost certainly heard of honky tonks. We are here in Texas, after all. This one does not come from Lenape. It comes from Lakota, and it is roughly equivalent to caucus. It is a meeting place, and the Lakota word is honky tonk. It is, again, almost exactly the same word. And we still use these terms today. How about humongous? Another one, this again from Lenape, is amanga, which is a giant or a monster. When something is humongous, it is enormous, right? So amanga, a mountain, for example, is amangawunga, a giant hill. Moccasin. This one is pretty straightforward. Moccasin, quite simply, is a shoe. A lot of people think that it's a particular kind of shoe. But no, it's just any kind of shoe. The moccasin. Okie dokie. You might be thinking, okie dokie, where are we going with this? Well, okie dokie, I don't know if you were aware of this, but whenever you use the word okie dokie, it comes from okitok, which is Mingo for so be it. It is roughly the equivalent of amen. Pecan. I'm sure many of us have probably gotten into a dispute over the pronunciation of this word. I happen to know that it is properly pronounced pecan. Why? Because it simply means nut. And how about persimmon? Now, curiously about the thing about persimmons is that you don't see them nearly as frequently in American cuisine today. Seems somewhat exotic, almost like it's foreign. But no, the persimmon is indigenous to the southeast of Turtle Island, and it also describes how you're supposed to store it, how you're supposed to preserve it. The phrase is pasimonon, means this is a thing to be dried. You dry this. Pasimonon. Punk is another good one. This comes from pungus, which is a biting fly. Kind of like a mosquito. Uche is another one for a fly or a mosquito. But pungus is any kind of bug, any kind of really pest. And so if you look at the town of Punxsutawney, remember Punxsutawney, Phil? Groundhog Day and all that? The name Punxsutawney is Pungusotenai, which is Bug Town. You see, Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania sits in a basin. There are hills all around it, and all of the rainwater and the creeks drain into this bowl. And geographically, it is a kind of water trap. And at certain times of year, it floods, and the water sits and is stagnant. And that's right there in the middle of town. Hence the name Bug Town. Skunk, of course, comes from Shkakwis. We've already mentioned Shkakwis, which is skunk grass. And then Wapasam, which is from Wapascom. This was an attempt to explain the Opink. Opink is a marsupial. It is, you know, it is the opossum or the possum. And the Opink was foreign to the English, and so people here on Turtle Island tried to describe it. And of course, the English didn't quite understand, so they tried to explain it in terms they understood, that the English understood. So a bit like a white-faced dog, and Wapascom is white-faced dog. So, and that's just a few. There are many others, and you'll be surprised just how many there are. These are some of the surprising ones. Some of the ones that you may have already been aware of. But then again, you might have had no idea, no clue. One last question that might be on your mind. Why are there so many from the Lenape language? Why from Algonquian? Well, on one hand, the Algonquian language group was the largest, most widespread language group on all of Turtle Island. But there's also another reason. Here's the Algonquian languages. Most of the region that's shaded in I guess that's beige. Most of the languages that are depicted here, with the exception of the green ones in the middle, were related, were part of the same language group. It was, like I said, it was widespread. Stretching all the way from Newfoundland and Labrador, all the way to present-day eastern Iowa. And what this map does not depict is actually even western Iowa, right up to the edge of the what is now the Nebraska state line along the Missouri River. Missouri, by the way, is also an Algonquian language. I noticed that it didn't include the Cheyenne, this graphic, but it should. Cheyenne comes from Chayamagape, the first to go. The first people to go, to leave. There's an old story about a migration eastward of Algonquian people, and the first time that the larger groups split off, so the story goes, they stayed in sort of the Great Basin area of Turtle Island and became the Shawnee. So here we see the Cree, the Montagnais, the Mi'kmaq, the Maliseet, the Abenaki. Abenaki means Dawnland, Wapanhoking, Mohegan, Mohican. They are all part of this same widespread mode of communication. But there's also another reason that is much more recent. This man here. His name was Skatumakwe, which translates into the English as Black Beaver. He worked for the federal government. He was a scout. And given the reputation that Lenape people and Algonquian people in general had, especially Lenape, for diplomacy, for a facility with language, and the ability to communicate with a wide variety of peoples. There's even a record of Tecumseh with Shawnee meeting with the Dakota to try to bring them into a kind of Western alliance to stand up to the Huanticanal, the Long Knives, that is the people of Virginia. It wasn't successful, but the Western Alliance did manage to patrol the Kentucky, the dark and bloody ground. Scatamakwe and people like him served in the United States Army as scouts. And you'll find surprising pieces, surprising evidence of their influence in the names of places. Some of these are apocryphal stories, such as the West Texas or the Texas Panhandle town of Tahoka. Now, I'm not sure if this is true, but it does have a ring to it that sounds like it could very well have been an American soldier, captain maybe, found themselves in what's now the Texas Panhandle, had a Lenape scout with him, found this community that had no name. It was made up of, you had Texans, you had Algonquians, you had people from Mexico, so you had Mexicans, you had Cheyenne, you had people from all over. You had blacks and people from all over, and they all came together in this community somewhere south of Lubbock, more or less to serve as a kind of trading post, and some people's or a place to trade, to negotiate, to do business. And some people just stayed. Had no name for this town, so the story goes. And when the captain asked, "What is the name of this place?" Ask so-and-so, "What is the name of this place?" And the people who were asked had no idea. They said, "We don't have a name for this place." And the scout, of course, was insistent because the captain so ordered it. And so he stamps his foot and he says, "Tahoka! This place, here." The name stuck. I don't know whether that story is true, but it is consistent. It does have a ring of truth to it, doesn't it? I want to thank you very much for your time. Akchiknewel is a valediction of sorts. It means I shall see you again. Anishi wemanweni elipayan ngulsuta. Piste kalonan dakwe kinwehna kwaitishwik. The first line is, thank you for coming. Thank you to all of you for coming and listening. Perhaps, second line, perhaps we have all learned something today. Velikishko. I bid you good day. Anishi.
Join in the journey, confirming, committing our passage to be a true affirmation in joy and tribulation, when bound to human care and hope, then we are free. We gather together to join in the journey, confirming, committing our passage to be a true affirmation salvation in joy and tribulation, when bound to human care and hope, then we are free.
Let there be an offering to sustain and strengthen this place which is sacred to so many of us, a community of memory and hope, for we are now the keepers of the dream. To make an offering or your pledge, please go to oakcliffuu.org/donate and follow the links.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. De ti yo recibo, a ti te doy. Así compartimos y vivimos hoy. Receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. De ti yo recibo, a ti te doy. Así compartimos y vivimos hoy.
May We Go Forth from This Place by Charles A. Howe. May we go forth from this place thankful for the life that sustains and renews us, and open to the grace that surrounds and surprises us. May we go forth from this place with openness and with thanksgiving.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
And now in Spanish. Encendimos esta llama, pero no la luz de la verdad, el calor de comunidad o el fuego de nuestro compromiso. Estos los llevamos en el corazón hasta que estemos juntos otra vez.
Sit at the welcome table. We're gonna sit at the welcome table one of these days, hallelujah. We're gonna sit at the welcome table. Gonna sit at the welcome table one of these days. All kinds of people around that table. All kinds of people around that table one of these days, hallelujah. All kinds of people around that table. Gonna sit at the welcome table one of these days. No fancy style at the welcome table. Oh, no fancy style at the welcome table one of these days, hallelujah. No fancy style at the welcome